welcome you to the FAQ series with Uncle Uche. In this series, we will be looking at questions relating to discipline. Here I have a question from one of our parents, and it reads thus. Is it not better to discipline a child immediately rather than postpone it? I ask this question because the child may have apologized while you were waiting to punish or discipline the child. And this may seem as though the parent doesn't appreciate apologies. Thank you very much for this question. And I want to believe that the background to this question is the fact that when we talk about discipline, we always come from this point. Never you discipline a child, a teenager, when you are angry. That's something we say all the time in children and teens ministry. Because when you are angry, you can go over and above board. So we always recommend, when you're angry, don't discipline. Calm down. Wait on the Lord. Wait for the Holy Spirit before you go into any form of discipline. And I'm sure the background to this is what is leading this parent to ask this question. If I don't discipline this child, now that the thing is hot, what makes you feel that after the child has repented, apologized, and I now come and discipline the child, is as if I don't appreciate that the fact that the teenager or the child apologized? Well, the question I want to ask my parents is, what is the end goal of the discipline? Is it not to get the child to have a change in behavior? Is it not to get the child to understand that what he or she did wasn't right so that he doesn't do it again? Now, discipline is not necessarily all about inflicting pains on the young fellow. That's punishment. So if I didn't discipline a child or a teenager immediately, and the teenager on his own, on her own, realizes that what he or she did was wrong and comes to apologize, that's beautiful, that's fine, that shows that the teenager or the child is learning. However, I will say this in passing, that for every action, for every activity at home, in school, we should have rules and regulations. If, for example, there's a rule that says, do not come back after so and so time, and a teenager breaks that rule, in the rule we said, if you break the rule, you're going to be disciplined like this and like that. If the teenager realizes, even before the discipline comes and comes to apologize, that doesn't stop us from enforcing the rules. It's a rule we have all set together, both us and the teenager. So it's not just about, oh, he has now apologized. In some cases, when the teenager apologizes, yes, you let go. Because what we want to solve, what we want to achieve, is a change of attitude. If I have realized that what I did was wrong and I apologize, why go ahead and discipline, punish, as the case may be? Now, some children could actually take it as, okay, no problem, I'll do it and I'll apologize. If you notice that this is a trend, we need to nip it from the board. And that's why, if there are rules, you break the rules, you should be disciplined. You break the rules, whether you apologize or not. Yes, apology accepted, but there are consequences for rules that have been broken. And that's why we say, since I have broken the rule, of course, I should, in love, take the discipline as a corrective measure so that others will also not follow suit. When you don't discipline that individual, others will say, no problem, when I do my own, I will also apologize. But when they know that there's a consequence that goes with it, for every wrongdoing, every wrong behavior, as we have agreed, I will be disciplined, then it will cause them to retrace and not to follow suit. And that's what we need to do so that we can be able to balance both sides of the We can be able to balance both sides. Is there any disciplinary measure to give to a 2-year-old child who knows how to talk but does not respond to questions when you ask him one-on-one? Thank you very much for sending in that question. And I'll start by saying, when it comes to discipline, it relates to everyone from cradle to grave. But our focus and emphasis is on children and teenagers. Therefore, let's talk about a little bit about children. The Bible in the book of Proverbs chapter 22 verse 15 says that foolishness is bound in the heart of a child, but the rod of correction will drive it out. Now that simply tells us that every child, teenager, or what have you, it's prone to have elements of what the Bible calls quote and unquote foolishness. And then it says the rod of correction, the rod of discipline will drive it out. Now, talking about discipline, for a 2-year-old child, a 2-year-old child also knows what is good and bad. I'll give you this practical illustration. When a baby is suckling from the mother's breast and the baby becomes mischievous by biting the nipple of the mom's breast, most parents, what do? Most mothers, you begin to spank the child a bit, either on the foot, on the arm or something, and the child understands that and the child stops. It goes the same way. When a 2-year-old child, or even less, begins to misbehave or do things that are not right, it is proper we discipline that child. But we need to understand what we mean by discipline. When we talk about discipline, a good definition of discipline is that discipline is the process of teaching self-control. The process of teaching self-control. Therefore, I need to teach a 2-year-old self-control by telling the 2-year-old not to do A, B, C, D thing. And there are various ways to do that by applying techniques of discipline. Remove certain things the child likes. Tell the child to sit at one place at a given point in time. The child may not like it, but the truth is that when the child knows you're serious, the child will understand that what he or she had done is not right, and the child will take correction. So when we apply some of these techniques and many more, we will be able to get that 2-year-old child to behave right and do the right thing. We have a question here from another parent, and the question reads thus: how do you handle children that are daring? That is, they want to see what you will do. And it goes side by side with the next question, still from the same person: how do I punish a very stubborn teenager? Here we're looking at a daring child or teenager and a stubborn teenager. How do I punish them? Wow. What's your definition of daring? That's a very good place to start from. Working with young people over the years, I have discovered that what many people call daring and stubborn is actually not what stubborn it's all about. By default, an average teenager has this tendency of wanting to say no to status quo, which we call rebel to status quo, to norm. Nevertheless, to some extent, some teenagers take it to the extreme. So when we talk about a child who is daring, a teenager who is daring, a daring child, a daring teenager did not just start overnight. He or she built it over time based on how the parents have related to that child. Well, I don't know what may have happened, but we've come to the point where that child is daring. What should I do? One, as a parent, understand that there's a difference between discipline and punishment. Discipline you're trying to train and teach a child the right way the child should go. Punishment, you're trying to inflict pain and suffering on a particular child. Most times when we use punishment on children, they grow to build a tough skin, and that's what leads to them being daring. That's what leads to them trying to tell you, no problem, you can flog me, I'll tell you that the cane wouldn't enter my body, and all that. And you see, the more he does that, or she does that, the more you, the parent or the teacher, want to increase the intensity of the punishment. And by so doing, you'll get into conflicts that are not necessary. A simple rule, a simple technique, a simple way to handle children or teenagers that are daring and stubborn is what I call show them love. Express love. Every child wants to be loved. Every child wants to feel loved. And you can actually discipline a child in love. And when you discipline a child in love, you get the best out of that child. So when next that child shows some level of daring you or being stubborn, can you change the technique and show the child, I love you. I love you, irrespective of how you are. The child at some point will get angry. Why should you love me? I don't want you to love me. I want you to hate me because I want us to get into this battle. And you make the child realize, look, I love you and I will show you love. Before you know it, the child will come crumbling like a pack of cards, because the child, like, no matter what I do to this fellow, no matter what I do to my parent, they keep loving me. They keep expressing this love because something is driving you. So love, love, love. When we express love, when we show love, we will be able to address those components. I hope I've been able to address that question. Thank you very much, as I see you in subsequent series of FAQ with Uncle Uche.